Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Minh, and I'm your host from NDIS Property Australia. And you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, we have a first-time guest speaker, a wonderful, lovely person by the name of Zoe Norton from Blue Wing Care Professionals. Zoe, welcome. It's been a long time. I finally got you on our podcast show to interview you about who you are and what you've done and where you're going in life in the NDIS world.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, I'm here and loving it, and it's been a good day. So I'll start with my story.
Yeah. First question. So who are you? Where are you based? Where do you operate from your business? What do you guys do? Yeah, a bit of background story and history, please, there.
Okay, so I'm Zoe Norton from Blue Wing Care Professionals. I'm the founder. I started 7 years ago. I have a lot of nursing background, day program, respite, NDIS, LAC, Vinnies, and then I was NDIA planner. So from that, I then started my own business in support coordination, and it started in Sydney. I built a team, clientele, and then moved to Gold Coast, Queensland, Brisbane area 3.5 years ago, and started coordination here with also connecting with different providers, and grew here. We have an office in Binglee, and we have an office in Campbelltown in Sydney.
Wow. What a massive journey in the last 6, 7, 8 years here, Zoe.
Yeah, 7 years altogether. It was our anniversary of 7 years on the 18th of January.
Wow.
And we have hundreds of staff that range from being gold facilitators, known as support workers, from plan managers, accountants to therapists. We have sensory rooms. We have coordinators, recovery coaches. We do SDA and SEAL. We connect with providers, and obviously I've known you for a long time, Minh, helping me find houses and appropriate areas and connecting people for the right houses in SDA and SEAL work. So, yeah.
I'm trying to recall some numbers in my head about your business. I think about a year and a half ago, I was talking to one of your other staff in our podcast, and she mentioned that you had about 1,300 participants across the two cities of Sydney and Brisbane, of which I think probably 2/3 would be in Queensland and a little bit over half of in Queensland. Is that right, or what's the number?
Yeah, well, the numbers have grown since the year and a half ago, of course. But, Queensland is more of the SEAL and SDA side, but New South Wales is more therapy and in-home support and respite, which is short-term accommodation, STA, but it's kind of shifted now. So Queensland, the therapy team, has got speeches and OTs now, and that team has grown a lot. So we've been no really waiting list because we keep hiring and finding very good therapists, and they help write amazing reports to get the funding you need for the SDA properties or the SEAL, and do S48s, which are change of circumstances, to help get the funds correct to be able to move into properties and not be homeless. And, if you're homeless, it affects your mental health, your depression, a whole lot of range of things. So we work as a team as recovery coaches and coordinators, and therapists are very big in Queensland, but it's different in Sydney. It's the same. We have a very big therapy team and sensory rooms and things in Sydney, in Campbelltown.
That's a lot to digest there, Zoe. Can we just pull it back a little bit and just to bring it back to basics for our listeners who may not understand all the terminology here?
Yep.
You said in Queensland more SIL and SDA, but down south in Sydney it's more, you said in-home and community and therapies. To the normal consumer, mum and dad who's looking at the world of NDIS, is just ill provider, right? I mean, there's just so much in there, and it's obviously complicated because there's so much need for different services. you must have a lot of services in your organisation to provide support to these individuals in the community, whether it's drop-in, community access, in-home, 24/7 support, in SDA houses or facility houses. It's a lot there. How many staff do you need to service all these participants in your business here? I mean, are we talking 400 or 500 staff here or what?
Yeah, around the 400 or 500 staff. And SEAL is the supports that you're doing in the home. So yes, if you've got 24/7, you've got to have a range of teams. And if you've got a participant that's 2 workers to 1 client, you've got to have round the clock team and RNs and on call. You've got the recruiters that are recruiting the gold facilitators plus the RNs.
Yes.
You've got 24-hour teams that are on call all the time to support these participants and the staff.
Over the last 5, 6 years now, I know the answer. There's been massive changes in the NDIS for you since the very start when you're working in the NDIS as a planner. The last 12 months, 2024, how have you seen those changes? And moving forward to 25 onwards, how do you see the impending changes in your world of NDIS, may I ask? Your opinion.
So in my opinion, last year I noticed a lot of waiting, a lot of chasing, waiting, trying to get new reports done correctly, because sometimes you have, therapists that go out on their own now and they're doing reports that are above what their knowledge is, because a senior would be doing those type of reports to get into certain robust housing or, SDAs and above. So you need certain reports written by certain therapists. So I think there's a long waiting because you've got to get someone to redo those reports. And if there's no funding, you've got to try to get someone that will do those reports for you for free or, support you like Blue Wing does, care professionals. We will do a certain amount of reports free to help the community, because a lot of people are getting knocked back for NDIS that do need SDA and robust SDA, because they're ending up in hospital for up to 18 months. So people's mental health, I've noticed, has changed from COVID, but I haven't noticed a difference. Like, it should have improved and it's gone backwards because people are waiting in hospital to get that funding with the nurses support, the social workers, the supports, to get all the correct reporting, but no one knows where to start. And it's with psychologists, it's with OTs, it could be with speech for full, because, you've got intellectual as well.
Yes.
So there's a big range of trying to get things sorted and then waiting for it to be submitted. You get it submitted, then there's that big time frame with the NDIS to get a planner to look at it, read it and approve it. And then it might come back to you and say, no, you need this change because the dates are too far back. So you've got to get it redone.
Yes. That's a lot for me to absorb there. And I want to just reiterate that again. For our listeners who are trying to figure out, it must be pretty easy to find participants who are in hospital, get them out there. Well, no, you got the inpatient care in the hospital, social worker potentially, the NDIS consultant who consults to the staff at the hospital, the doctors, the physiotherapists, the LAC, local area coordinator, who may be providing the information to assist with the transition out, the occupational therapists who are writing reports, the support coordination service or coordinator, the SIL provider who are recommended to look after the support in the community, the SDA provider who actually manages the house where they end up going. That's a long list of people there, Zoe. I mean, have I missed anyone else in this list here of getting this one person out of the hospital?
It's also, there could be an OPG.
Yes.
And a trust and guardian in place.
What does OPG mean for our listeners, please?
The OPG makes decisions for the participant if they don't have any family or anyone to make decisions for them in their life.
And they work for the government, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, gotcha. So that's a lot of people to get through, to get a tick before they actually leave the hospital to the community then.
Yes, and you've got to use the hospital staffing, like their therapists and their OTs and psychologists and support workers and or their staffing, their nurses, and also the social workers, or to do stakeholder meetings as well with the coordinator if they don't even have a coordination yet.
Yes.
You can't just send a NDIS OT or specialist into the hospital because NDIS doesn't double fund. So it's the hospital doing it. So you've got to also remember the hospital OTs and all of their specialists and the doctors, they all have their other patients they've got to do as well. So it is a working process, having family also included and making sure everyone can meet up to have stakeholder meetings regularly. It is a time process. Yes.
Wow. That's a pretty big eye-opener into the whole process to get someone out and fully funded. Now, your background as a recovery coach and a sport coordination, tell me more about that history there in your life there, please. Well, what is a recovery coach, please?
So a recovery coach helps psychosocial. So it could be from having anxiety, not being able to go out in the community, or it could be schizophrenia that's affecting their day-to-day life, could have some behaviors and it's affecting them in society and in their homes. It's being on call for them and supporting them, finding the right supports, also having a coordinator working with you to put the supports in place in the right providers and being on call to support them. And if the police ring you, the ambulance, you're on call for that. You're there to support them. It can take a toll on you at times because you can't take it personal. It's what they're living and how they are. You might get abused or aggressive behaviors, but it's why it's psychosocial, because it's not their fault. They're not meaning to do it to you or to anybody. It's just their mental health is very affected.
So were you a support coordination person first before you went to a recovery coach? And how is that different from support? How is recovery coach, or how is this different from support coordination, please?
So support coordination, you get charged hourly and it stops like 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, where recovery coach, you're charging different rates, but you've got day rate, you've got evening rates, then you've got night rates, and then you've got Saturday, Sunday rates at the day, evening, night, which all that fun changes because you're working 24/7, 7 days a week with participants, and it's usually not just one psychosocial client or participant, it's many. So you're there on call constantly to help them. If they're not feeling good or something's wrong, you're talking through and talking them down, or I'm ringing an ambulance, police, because they need a welfare check and then they've got to go to hospital. So it is a 24-hour job. It's not, that's the difference. A coordinator gets to clock off, but good coordinators, we sometimes are working all night long because we're catching up all of our work because we're taking that on. And some support coordination clients, they do need recovery coach because they do have mental health as well. So sometimes you can't tell the difference between what's coordination and what's recovery coach because it kind of falls into the same category at times.
Gotcha. You and I spoke offline about a couple of hours ago about support coordinators becoming navigators, if they are or they are not, with a registered provider. What's your opinion about this whole navigator world that we talked about earlier today? How I asked you the question, well, word is on the street that a lot of the support coordinators are worried that they may end up being employees of the NDIS as employees, and you said they've been saying that for a long time now. What is this turmoil or concern or challenge in the proposed navigator world, please? What's your opinion on this topic?
So it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, and I've been hearing since back 2016, 17 that they were getting rid of support coordination. And, when I was a support coordinator as a planner, we were all scared we weren't going to have that job around, or even when I went out on my own and become a coordinator before, and then I become a recovery coach, I started to do that. But we were always afraid coordination is going to disappear, but it hasn't, and it never really will be able to because people don't understand NDIS. They get a plan given to them. They don't know how to read it. They don't know where to start. It's actually quite overwhelming. Even as a planner, going to sit and do information gathering and then to build a plan, people are scared because you're working for the government. They're scared to tell you the truth and to open up and say what's actually wrong. They're ashamed. It's a whole, different category for people. It's very anxious and anxiety for them. So they're saying they're going to turn them all to navigators, but I don't see that totally possible because you've got now, in my world, you had to have qualifications and certificates and a whole lot of range.
I assume not many sport coordinators have qualifications, do they?
No. And you've got support workers now becoming coordinators without the qualifications. And I have to fix a lot of things that happen. I get a lot of phone calls saying, Zoe, this and this and this, and I'm owed this, and I got approved for this. But that's not what's reasonable and necessary. You can't be using funds to buy personal stuff, and I come in and I fix things because I understand the NDIS world. A lot of people don't, and becoming a support worker to coordinator without the qualifications, I don't see all these coordinators becoming navigators without the qualifications behind them.
Yep.
So they will keep level 3s and recovery coaches, level 2s and level 1s. I think you'll have to have a lot of qualifications, or people are going to try to subcontract with you, which is still going to be a problem out there.
I'll throw some numbers at you, Zoe. About 15,000 businesses are registered as accredited providers in Australia. 200,000 plus are unregistered. With Bill Shorten's announcement last year in November 2024 saying we want to see everyone registered as providers in registration in the NDIS, how do you see the fallout of those 200,000 plus businesses who are unregistered? What's going to happen in the next few years, do you think? Are they going to drop off and disappear? Are they going to be merged together? Will there be a shortcut, fast-tracked to be registered if they've applied through into the NDIS system? What do you see the outcome in the next 2-3 years of this topic of registration?
So I think it's the best thing they've done, because you've got a lot of providers out there that are fraudulent. Not everybody, but you can come across it. You see it on the news, and we're talking about vulnerable people. So I think it's a good thing that's going to happen. I do see a lot of people dropping out, and the clients are going to be lost, or participants will be lost and not sure what to do, where to go. But then you'll have companies coming to people like myself that's been registered from day one. We do audit, we've passed everything. They'll come and try to subcontract with you, and then they'll have to bring their clients because they won't be able to do it. And it's going to be a long process to even get registered, because it can take up to 3 years. And you've got to have paperwork and evidence and to show what you're doing. A lot of people are self-managing or plan managing. They don't have those notes.
Yes. Is this what you mean earlier when you said to me brokering?
Yes, brokering, yes.
Which means basically, hi, I'm a provider in the last 2 years. I'm unregistered. I can't operate anymore. Can I piggyback off your license, please, Zoe? Is that what that means?
Yes, which then can also be a lot of problems if things aren't getting done by the books.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to know who you can partner up and who you can let in, because it's your name under the business and it's your registration. So it's going to be a lot of cutthroat as well. And there's going to be a lot of lost people not sure where to go.
Speaking of the word cutthroat, the last 2 years we've seen a lot of profitability of NDIS businesses shrinking, the marginalized. Explain to us, why has profitability shrunk so quickly, so fast the last 2 years as an NDIS provider? And also delay of payments as well, which is cash flow issues as well. All these compliance. Please explain how you see the world of NDIS out there, the past and moving forward as well, on this topic.
Well, in the past, if you go on to some of the Facebook NDIS chats, you've got pop-up companies coming everywhere that has no experience with NDIS, no experience with disability, mental health, housing, or any of it. And they just come into it and going, yeah, I was a support worker, or I've got a family member. And then no certificates, no qualifications. And then they're going in and then they're buying fridges and carpets and holidays and all of these things, which is fraudulent, which is also now lost money for the participant. And then there's not a lot of money there for the government is losing so much. So they're cutting plans down where people actually do need that 24-hour care, and they're not getting the care they need. They're getting put in hospital because people are doing the wrong thing, because there's pop-up companies coming everywhere and they're not qualified. They're not registered. They're plan or self-managed clients they're using. And unfortunately, people are getting either ripped off, or saying they're putting supports in place. The vulnerable person signing, no one turns up to do the work, or the work is the wrong work. It could be under the Housing Commission, Department of Housing, or it could be with, it's a home modification that you own your home. Like, there's so many things going wrong, and people are paying using all their core funding that was supposed to be their SEAL or their community access or their home, to take care of them in the home has been used for doing maintenance and things that they shouldn't. So the government is cutting down and more because people are doing the wrong thing.
Yes. I want to add a word to the word cutting down. It's more scrutinised. Because we're seeing more delays of payments because they're checking every invoice. They're verifying everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, but one provider told me a while ago that the old model before PACE of invoice comes in, gets paid straight away.
Yep.
It was just instant. No questions asked, paid. And when you have something like that operating on a massive level, the fraudsters, the unregistered, the uncompliant, they just submit and get paid and no questions asked. And because there's been so much leakage of red tape, fraud and all that kind of stuff, and it's blowing out of control now. And we're seeing so much changes in terms of delays. There's a delay of payments. Yeah, delays of payments by 3 or 4 months there, a lot of providers struggling out there with cash flow. Profit margins being squeezed because of compliance and also higher costs of operating a business. And now the mandatory registration coming in for everyone, this is just going to make things more efficient and for the better. I agree with you, Zoe, for the better. Get rid of the bad guys out of the system. And we're talking about SIL businesses, provider businesses. I'm not talking about SDA here, obviously, because SDA is housing. But I think the changes coming in coming few years will be for the better. I agree with you, yeah, for sure, yeah.
And I've been helping some, providers that they've got some young clients that they've been given and there's no funds there. And they're taking on this young participant. They're not paying any rent and they're putting support staff and paying out of their own pocket because no circumstances have been looked at and they're waiting 6 months. They're going to go out of business because they're not a charity. There's so many people trying to help people, but they're not getting paid for it. So that's also happening on the other side of it as well. And they do go into SDA properties as well. And they need to change the circumstances done because they haven't been funded right for the care that they need, or they've gone in and then the support workers or goal facilitators are seeing behaviours and stuff that wasn't reported to them when they've moved into the house. So, people are spending extra funding to try to put the support workers in place so no one gets hurt. So there's a lot of that going on as well.
Sure. So in the last year or 2 years, there have been one or two current affair kind of articles on news about the NDIA as an organisation. I mean, the impression I get from my colleagues in the NDIS world who are in SDA and providers as well, they say to me, look, sometimes they don't understand how things are running inside that system where a lot of staff turnover, we know that, staff turnover, young staff, inexperienced as well in the NDIS. That also has an impact upon the community as well, correct?
Correct.
And what has your experience have been with the inefficiencies of that kind of government department called the NDIA, which impacts upon delays of payment and corrects rulings or whatnot, and then tribunal challenges and all that kind of stuff? What's your experience the last 7-8 years on this topic here of the NDIA as an organisation, as an agency, yes, yeah?
Well, I think the NDIA and NDIS coming out has been the best thing that's ever happened for the participant, for the families. Speaking from my own heart, I have a daughter with cerebral palsy. She was a little girl that couldn't walk, talk, or they told me, that she wasn't going to do a lot of things. And back then it was ADAC funding and you had to be in a zone. I was in New South Wales at the time, zoning. And if you made a certain amount of money with your husband, then you have to go on waiting lists and it was all of that. And you'd go on a huge waiting list for someone to help you. And me having a husband that was in the military, he was away a lot. So it was just me doing it. But then NDIS rolled in and it was for the individual. And that was the best thing because then Courtney got everything she needed to help her come from a teenager to doing daily living skills, transport, traveling, all of those things. So that was a blessing for me personally because, I then worked with them and learnt how every part of the plan worked. A lot of people don't understand NDIS plans. And then it used to be a 12-month plan, then it turned into 2 years, and then it turns into 3. And you're going to run out of money and you got to know how it all works. So yes, when it works, it's amazing.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I agree with what you're saying. It's great that they came along and they are the way they are. However, I'm talking about the inefficiencies, the delays,
The delays and stuff, and for me, that's the worst of it.
yes.
The individual's taken care of, but we as well were taking care of someone in New South Wales, and she needed 2 workers, and NDIS wouldn't pay us, and it was over 140,000 we're still waiting for.
Why wouldn't they pay?
Because they put some cuts in and said, oh, you needed this paperwork, that paperwork. We had the paperwork. We proved it. So then we've had to go on higher and higher because they just started cutting the funding.
And this is my point, Zoe.
Yeah.
There are many stories and cases like this
Yes.
story out there where providers are doing the right thing by the community and by the NDIS as per their rules, but back there in that dark room called the approval, someone with that rubber stamp, they're not.
Goes to a delegate,
Yeah.
and if the delegate looks and says no, but we had all the evidence and we had all the proof and we had everything in writing, but they still would say no, no, no. And that's where companies can go bust and wrong.
Yes.
That are actually registered, are doing the care and did everything right by the family and the participant, and then you don't get paid. It is wrong, and that's the worst bit of NDIS.
So is this where it goes to tribunal next?
Yes, and then it can sit there for months and months, and you're waiting a year. Well, it's been a year and a half for us, and we still haven't been.
The tribunal scenario is you, the provider, versus the NDIA, or is the participant versus the NDIA?
Well, the participants passed away, so
Oh, geez.
it's you
Mm.
as a provider trying to backdate.
Yeah.
You know, you can only backdate so much as well. So, but we go back from when the participant was alive, rest in peace. But she needed all that care, and everything we did was in place of what the NDIS rules were.
Yes. Yes. It's unfortunate for that story to be the way it is, turn out the way it is. But I'm sure there are hundreds, if not thousands more stories, cases like that of people who are waiting for funding, waiting for approval, waiting for help from the NDIS because it's been set up the way it is, but the NDIS is pulling back to make it more efficient, to cut costs, and we understand because it's a government department. But even as we know, as you say here, even when you play by the rules, it's not good enough. It hurts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's probably the worst part of it because, you know, the only difference is we put the second person in, which we got approval for, but the participant couldn't wait there anymore. She couldn't get out of bed. She needed to be hoisted. And as you know, you need 2 people to hoist. So, or there's going to be injuries and there's a whole lot of other things that happen. So we did do the right thing, and it's unfortunate that you have delegates sitting there that hasn't done the nursing side and hasn't done the sides that we do. And we're taking very good care of the participant to give best quality of life, but then they don't want to pay us. So that's the worst part of it.
Sure. Well, that aside, Zoe, I mean, I do commend you for your fantastic growth of your business the last 7 years. Where do you see it going the next few years? Blue Wing Care Professionals, where do you see it going?
I hope it goes national.
Yes.
I hope that I can work with other providers to get the SDA world out there and help get the SIL, which is the care support in the homes more, and get the right funding for people and that so they can have a choice to go live in an SDA or a SIL property, you know, and have their own lives. Or people are stuck in hospital or in homes with, you know, elderly parents that really need to have their own time now. So that's where Blue Wing wants to go, is to keep growing, helping, connecting with providers, and just being a team. We're all one. We're all here for the right reasons.
Yeah. I mean, you're in Brisbane and Sydney. I would love to see you in Melbourne. You know, I've spoken about you. We've spoken about you coming to Melbourne again one day, and I hope it's soon.
It's going to be.
Yeah,
yes.
because I reckon the future of the workload of the NDIS population and growth and evolution is going to be in Melbourne. I definitely think so. With the population.
Yes, and I have spoken with you, and that's my next project. So yes.
So anyone out there who's listening, if you're a developer, a builder, or investor, you need some help, some guidance, some support, some collaboration, even some advice, just reach out to us, and I'll gladly introduce you to Zoe. Not too many of you at one time. Sorry. You know, we want to be able to share the love. I think the word Zoe, and you know as well, Zoe, there are people out there, be it participants or providers, who do need help, and they don't really know the nuances of how to maneuver within the NDIS or in SDA or in funding, and then, S48s, S100, change of circumstances, all that kind of stuff, which can be over their head. We know that, yes. And we try to, that's why we do what we do with this podcast, to share, resources, share knowledge and share experiences from people like Zoe Norton here, so that you out there who is thinking about developing a 10-pack of apartments in Melbourne or a duplex house in Sydney somewhere, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there's always people here to help. We're a resource ourselves, and we're happy to refer you guys onto the right people like Zoe as well if you need help as well. Zoe, any last words of advice from you to our listeners, who are SCA investors, by the way, our listeners, advice from you who's very experienced in the NDIS world and participants, and advice them as to, they're on their journey moving forward in SDA investing or housing, please. Any last words?
So my last words is, everyone has a story. Everyone's been through something. It's about being kind and, not just going in and going, you're going to this or you're going into that. For me, I go in and I get to know the person. I get to learn their stories, their family. I support them. They cry. I cry with them. It's about having that personal one-on-one touch and then helping them through the process of it all, because it is overwhelming. It is hard. I'm a parent that has done it all myself as well, and a provider that has held many people's hands, and that's why I did this company. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about any of it. It was so people like me that had it hard, which was hard. My hard might be different hard for other people, but it's about supporting each other and baby stepping through it all. And that's what I'm here to do.
Wonderful. Zoe Norton, Blue Wing care professional, thank you so much for coming into our office in Brisbane today. And hopefully we'll see you again soon in Sydney or Melbourne the next time around, yes?
Yes, Melbourne.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.